In the misty embrace of the Appalachian Mountains, where the pines whispered secrets to the wind, Jack Harlan pulled up to the weathered cabin he'd never known existed. At 42, he'd lived a life of quiet isolation in the bustling streets of Chicago, divorced, childless, and buried in a corporate job that drained his soul. The letter from the lawyer had arrived like a bolt from the blue, an inheritance from a great-uncle he'd met only once as a boy. "The cabin is yours," it read, "along with everything in it." Jack had driven the 800 miles on a whim, seeking escape from the emptiness. But as he stepped onto the creaky porch, the door swung open, revealing not dust and solitude, but 5 women, each strikingly beautiful in their own way, staring at him with a mix of defiance and hope. "You the new owner?" the tallest one asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "Think you can handle all 5 of us?" Jack froze, his duffel bag slipping from his shoulder. He'd expected cobwebs and faded memories, not this. The women ranged in age from mid-20s to late 30s, their faces etched with stories he couldn't yet fathom. There was Elena, with her olive skin and fierce dark eyes, who spoke first. Beside her, Mia, a freckled redhead with a gentle smile that hid scars, then Sophia, whose golden curls framed a weary expression, Lila, with ominous and a quiet strength, and finally, Rosa, the youngest, her braided hair falling like a cascade of midnight. They weren't intruders in the criminal sense, Jack learned quickly over a hastily brewed pot of coffee that his great-uncle, Old Man Harlan, had taken them in one by one over the years. "He was like a father to us," Mia explained, her voice trembling. "We had nowhere else." Jack's initial shock turned to irritation. This was his fresh start, his solitude. But as the sun dipped low, casting golden hues through the cabin's windows, he listened. And in listening, the walls of his guarded heart began to crack. Elena's story came first, raw and unfiltered. She'd fled a war-torn village in Syria 5 years ago, crossing oceans with nothing but the clothes on her back and a dream of safety. Old Harlan had found her hitchhiking on a rainy night, half-starved, and offered shelter without question. "He said kindness costs nothing but gives everything," she recounted, her accent thick with emotion. Mia followed, her tale hitting closer to home for Jack. She'd lost her job in the Rust Belt during the economic crash, then her home, spiraling into despair until Harlan spotted her at a soup kitchen in nearby Asheville. "I was invisible to the world," she whispered, "but not to him." Sophia spoke of escaping an abusive marriage in Texas, her voice breaking as she described the bruises that had faded but the fear that lingered. Lila, from a Native American reservation out west, had been displaced by land disputes, wandering until Harlan's cabin became her anchor. And Rosa, the youngest, had aged out of foster care in California, bouncing from place to place until a chance encounter with the old man on a bus bench changed her trajectory. Each woman was beautiful, yes, not in the superficial gloss of magazines, but in the resilient glow of survivors who'd clawed their way back from the brink. Jack, who'd always prided himself on self-reliance, felt a stirring he hadn't known in years, impulsive, unbidden and profound. That night, as rain pattered on the tin roof, Jack wrestled with his decision. Evict them? It was his legal right. Save the place and pocket the cash? Tempting, for a man whose savings were as thin as his social ties. But an unexpected turn came at dawn when he stumbled upon Harlan's journal in a dusty drawer. Page after page detailed not just the women's arrivals, but the old man's philosophy. In a world that hoards, give freely. In division, build bridges. These girls aren't burdens, they're reminders of our shared humanity. Jack read of Harlan's own losses, a wife to cancer, a son to war, and how helping others had mended his broken spirit. A profound realization washed over Jack like the morning light. His inheritance wasn't the cabin, but the legacy of compassion it held. He spent his life chasing success, only to end up alone. What if this was his chance to rewrite that script? Days blurred into a tentative rhythm. Jack didn't ask them to leave. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves. He fixed the leaky roof with Elena's help, her engineering skills from back home proving invaluable. With Mia, he planted a vegetable garden, her laughter echoing as they unearthed potatoes like buried treasure. Sophia taught him to cook hearty meals, turning the kitchen into a haven of shared stories. Lila shared ancient herbal remedies, healing not just bodies but souls with her quiet wisdom. And Rosa, with her tech-savvy flair, set up solar panels scavenged from town, bringing light to their remote world. Jack found himself opening up, about his failed marriage, the job that suffocated him, the void he'd tried to fill with material things. "I thought I was handling life," he admitted one evening by the fire, "but I was just surviving it." The women nodded, their eyes reflecting understanding. Bonds formed, not of romance, but of family, forged in vulnerability and mutual respect. The emotional climax arrived on a stormy autumn night, when a knock echoed through the cabin. It was a social worker, tipped off by a nosy neighbor, come to assess the situation. The women tensed, eviction loomed like the thunder outside. Rosa, still undocumented in parts of her paperwork, faced deportation risks. Mia's past debts could unravel everything. Jack, heart pounding, stepped forward. "Their family," he declared, his voice steady for the first time in years. But words weren't enough, the worker demanded proof of stability, or the women would be scattered to shelters or worse. In that moment, Jack made his choice. He pulled out the deed, the one asset tying him to this new life, and signed it over, not to sell, but to form a trust. "The cabin belongs to all of us now," he said, tears in his eyes. "We'll build a cooperative, a safe haven for more like you." It was an act of pure selflessness, sacrificing his sole ownership for their collective future. The worker, moved by the gesture, backed off, promising support instead of separation. The women enveloped him in hugs, their gratitude a tidal wave that washed away his lingering doubts. In the weeks that followed, the cabin transformed, not just structurally, with fresh paint and expanded rooms, but spiritually. Word spread quietly in the community, drawing others in need. A veteran down on his luck, a single mother with wide-eyed children. Jack, once adrift, found purpose in leading this unlikely sanctuary. "You can handle all 5 of us?" Elena had asked that first day. Now, Jack smiled inwardly, he'd handled more than that, he'd embraced the power of humanity's interconnectedness. Kindness, he realized, wasn't a weakness but a superpower, rippling outward like stones in a pond. As winter's first snow blanketed the mountains, Jack stood on the porch, surrounded by his chosen family. The world beyond might rage with division and hardship, but here, in this inherited haven, hope bloomed eternal. For in giving of ourselves, we don't diminish, we multiply. And in that truth lies the unbreakable spirit of us all.